on the major, so let's go ahead and get into it. So here's the ending results of the opening stage, and man, dude, I have to tell you, my Pick-Ems got absolutely destroyed. I ended up only getting 4 right, and Fnatic losing to Rare Atoms was just so unforeseen, but that's just, you know, just how the games play, it's just how the dice roll sometimes. Some other things I was surprised to see is that the wildcards made through, so big shout out to my NA teams. Super proud of the boys for doing that. Not proud of Complexity losing to Big, because that was a disaster of a best of 3. So hopefully now we can see some big roster changes, or we can see Elige go to another team after this major cycle. You know, Complexity has some good players, or, you know, Elige is like a good player, so maybe they have to like cut some people, rebuild around him, or Elige just ends up leaving. I honestly think Elige is just stuck in a weird spot. I'm not sure if he really wants to go to Europe, where he, you know, his caliber and his talent is matched, but there's so many few options. There's just few options here in the NA, so we'll have to see what happens when he does. There's a lot of talk of him moving to Liquid, but they seem so stuck on Yakinder that I doubt that Liquid management and the players will want to cut Yakinder after all of this time. So, you know, maybe he even goes to NRG with Nitro. I mean, that's pretty wishful thinking, but, you know, it's fun to dream. I'm actually surprised to see Team Liquid go 3-0 as well, but honestly, it looks like they had an easy road with their seeding, playing Cloud9, Wildcard, and FlyQuest. But you can make that argument for Mongols too, where I think that Mongols is also a good team, but also had easy seeding. So if your Pick-Ems are cooked like mine, that's just how it goes, guys. That's just how it goes. Don't get too upset about it. Here's actually a list of professional analysts and other content creators and Zywoo for Counter-Strike and their Pick-Em results. And you can see that only 2 out of 7 pro analysts got the opening stage right. It looks like the Rare Atoms not going 0-3 was just a huge nail in the coffin for so many people. Like, I think so many people on this list would have gotten 5 right if Rare Atoms had lost 0-3. But, you know, that just shows that the major Pick-Em format is extremely difficult now due to the randomness of just best of ones and just how unforgiving the nature of the 3-0 picks are, right? Because the 3-0 picks don't count towards your 3x picks. So if you put a team at 3-0 and they end up not going 3-0, not only have you wasted that slot, but then if they end up going 3x, they take a slot out of one of those Pick-Em slots too. So would you guys like to see any changes to the Pick-Em format? I have a couple of ideas, and I'll make a video on it on what I think can be improved while keeping the Diamond Coin a challenge, but making it feel, the Pick-Ems, making it feel better to play and pick. So here's the next stage bracket, and this is where I think the major is really going to start to heat up. I'm going to walk you through how I make my Pick-Ems and the pros of cons of how I choose. First, I like to identify any potential upsets. And it's not that I think that the underdog team is better, it's more that I think that the higher seeded team they can lose here. It's almost like a percentage game of how I think it'll play out. Historically, there have been 3 to 4 upsets in the round 1 stages of big tournaments like this, including the PGL major this past summer and the opening stage that we just witnessed. So therefore, I think you can choose 3 to 4 upsets based on how you think the games are going to go. So I've identified G2 Mongols, Spirit Furia, Mouse Pain, FaZe Wildcard, and Heroic vs Big as potential upset games, but let me know if you guys agree with that or not. So if I'm going to choose the 3 to 4 upsets, this is actually what I think is most likely going to be, you know, the ending result. This is probably the upsets I would choose. But before you go to the comments, give me like 2 minutes to cook, and then you can roast me. So if we take a look at Spirit and Furia, Furia is a bracket buster and is just such a hot and cold team that I believe that they could upset Spirit. Spirit is a great team and will definitely make it through this bracket, but let's just be honest, it's the Donk and Shiro show with 3 supporting cast members for added drama. If we take a quick look into the stats, we can see what's going on and why I'm thinking this. So this is the HLTV page for Spirit and has their most recent matches. There's a couple of things I want to identify. First, I want to acknowledge that the limitations of this based on the amount of matches that they've played. So most teams have training times in between larger matches, and we can see that prior to this major, the Spirit's most recent tournament was the Blast Premier tournament, 20 days before the RMR, and the RMR is about 10 days ago now when it first started prior to this stage. So in the Blast series, they put up a good showing, but ultimately dropped games against Astralis and G2. And in the RMRB, which concluded 10 days ago, we can also see that they lost to Passion UA. Great team, by the way. Sad to see them lose, but had to be either Wildcard or Passion UA, and glad it was Wildcard. And then Spirit also lost to G2 in a best of 3. Their wins for the RMR included Bait, who 0-3'd out, Aurora, who went 1-3, Sashi and Nip, who were 15th and 9th seeded team respectively in the RMRB. So I don't think Spirit has had a lot of difficult games to get through, and what they have been showing hasn't been very impressive. So when I look at the Furia versus Spirit, and their match histories, I really believe that Furia can beat Spirit in a best of one. It's not that I think Spirit will lose, but if there's a chance of an upset, then I don't feel comfortable putting them as a team that will end up 3-0, is my opinion. And you can disagree with me, and that's all good, but overall, I think in a very unbiased way, I think any of the top 5 teams are going to be good contenders to go 3-0. So if you made your Pick-Ems bracket anything like this, if you had like Mao's Spirit, Mao's Vitality, Navi Spirit as your 3-0, I wouldn't hate it. I'd be like, yeah, I understand. I get it. So going back to the bracket with potential upsets, I've went ahead and built out the rest of it, trying to min-max it with the potential match progressions. If you guys haven't used this website before, it's called majors.im. You can just Google it, and it's awesome. It's an awesome tool, and I highly recommend that you play around with this as you want to kind of figure out how you want your bracket to look like and what you think are going to be the ending results for your predictions. So in the brackets that I've built and looked at, I feel really confident that Liquid and Gamer Legion are going to go 0-2, but you could make the argument that FaZe will lose to Liquid instead in round 2 in this kind of makeup. And overall, I would like to caution everyone against FaZe. I think we all know that they're a hot and cold team, just like Furia, and are also bracket busters. And overall, I think the 0-3 is really difficult to build out. So I think it's going to be harder than a 3-0. So I just kind of want to skip this for now and come back to it in a second. So here's a recent list of S-tier classified tournaments on Wikipedia, and overall you can see a trend that the big organizations like FaZe, Vitality, Navi's, and all the others always make deep runs. And there's usually what I consider underdogs that make it in. So there's a couple of them that always will squeak their way in, and I think it's a good idea to think about these underdogs and include them when you're thinking of making a bracket and when you're going to put 8 teams through. So going forward about what I think the underdog teams are going to make it through, I think that Mongols are for sure going to make it. Then I think either Heroic or Liquid could also show up, but one of them might 3-0. Team Liquid could 3-0 here, and Heroic could 0-3. And then finally, I think that Big, 3D Max, and Gamer Legion all have their own good odds of making it through depending on how their matches go and their buckled score. So now that we're coming back to the 0-3, I think that good candidates for the 0-3 are Liquid, Gamer Legion, and Mibber. And it's not that I think that they're bad teams, I just don't think the seeding works out in their favor if you play around the brackets, and they have touch matchups. Like if you look at Liquid plays against Navi, and I would be very surprised to see this as an upset. And then after that, they'd most likely play FaZe, because FaZe would probably flunk out here. And I think FaZe is just a better team than Liquid. I think Liquid has a choking problem, and I think they're going to go 0-2. And if they are in the 0-2 bracket, then there's a high chance that they could just end up 0-3. So I think overall, as much crap as I'm talking about Liquid, I think that I'm going to be picking Gamer Legion and Mibber as my 0-3 teams, because I think that overall that they are the weakest teams here besides Wildcard. Like if you wanted to put Wildcard as 0-3, also I wouldn't be upset about that. I think that's a completely valid reasoning. But I'm banking on literally just getting one of them. So here in the bracket that I've drawn up, I have Gamer Legion playing against Mibber, so at least in this way, I'm not expecting either of them to make it through. So you can kind of take that at least one of them will 0-3, right? So you're at least getting a single point for the 0-2 bracket, or I'm sorry, for the 0-3 result. Overall, I think G2 and Vitality are going to be my 3-0 teams. I think Navi, I don't trust it. You know, as much as I'm saying that Liquid could not upset Navi, at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised to see it. And also, I think if FaZe beats Wildcard in the best of one, then Navi will end up playing a tougher opponents than Wildcard, so they could have some troubles getting it in. I think Vitality, the Zyru show, is strong enough to get through 3-0, and I think that G2, they're going to come out swinging as well. For my other teams that I have just going through, I'm going to have Mongols, Navi, Mao's, FaZe, Spirit, Heroic. So that's 6 teams. I'm going to have them go through in the 3X, so 3 wins. And X losses. But, you know, I've also seen other strategies to just put the top 6 teams, so that's G2 through FaZe, as your 3X, because they're all expected to go through, and you should theoretically, in this scenario, get 4 of them right. So 2 of them would end up 3-0ing, and the rest 4 would get through. And then you would just have to bank on gambling to get one of the 0-3 teams correct. I'm not going to do that. If you do it, leave me a comment. Let me know how it goes for you at the end of it. And so that wraps up the video for today. Let me know in the comments how you did on your Pick-Ems for the opening stage and what you think is going to happen this week. Also, let me know if you like these types of video more. I used to teach, so I love to use PowerPoints and direct information presentations. And so thanks for listening to Counter-Strike Radio. Good night and good luck.